Why Michael Jackson rejected 3 songs with Freddie Mercury. The Llama Story. Los Angeles, 1983. The City of Dreams was about to witness the collision of 2 musical universes. Nobody knew about the meeting. Not the press, not their managers, not even their closest friends. A black limousine pulled up to a nondescript recording studio in Burbank at exactly 11:47 p.m. The windows were tinted so dark that even the streetlights couldn't penetrate them. Michael Jackson stepped out first. His sequined glove caught the moonlight for just a moment before he disappeared into the shadows. 3 minutes later, another car arrived. This one was different. Louder, more theatrical. Freddie Mercury emerged like a force of nature, his mustache perfectly groomed, his eyes scanning the empty street with the intensity of a predator. They had both received the same cryptic message: the future of music awaits. Studio B, midnight. Come alone. What happened next would remain one of the music industry's most guarded secrets for over 4 decades. The studio was small, intimate, dimly lit with candles that cast dancing shadows on the walls. In the center sat a grand piano, its black surface reflecting the flickering flames like a dark mirror. "So," Freddie said, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "The king of pop meets the queen of rock." Michael said nothing. He simply nodded, his eyes never leaving Freddie's face. They both knew why they were there. The music industry was changing. MTV was king. A world wanted something revolutionary, something that had never been heard before. "I have 3 songs," Freddie continued, walking to the piano with the grace of a panther. 3 songs that will make us immortal." Michael tilted his head, curious. "What kind of songs?" Freddie's lips curved into a mysterious smile, the kind that change everything. But neither man knew that this collaboration would end in betrayal, obsession, and a secret so bizarre that it would haunt both of them forever. "Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content that's coming up. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Michael Jackson wasn't just the king of pop. He was a perfectionist, consumed by his craft. Every note had to be perfect. Every beat had to pulse with mathematical precision. Every breath had to serve the song. That night in Studio B, he watched Freddie Mercury with the intensity of a scientist studying a rare specimen. Because Freddie was everything Michael wasn't. Where Michael was controlled, Freddie was chaos. Where Michael was calculated, Freddie was pure instinct. Where Michael sought perfection, Freddie embraced beautiful destruction. "Tell me about these songs," Michael said, his voice barely above a whisper. Freddie sat at the piano, his fingers dancing across the keys without making a sound. "The first one is called Celestial Fusion. It's about 2 souls becoming one through music." Michael's eyes widened. He could already hear it in his mind. The harmonies, the possibilities. "The second," Freddie continued, "is Mirror of Time, a song about seeing yourself in someone else's dreams." Michael stepped closer. The air between them crackled with creative electricity. "And the third?" Freddie's smile faded. His eyes grew distant, almost haunted. "The third song requires something special." "What do you mean?" "It requires preparation." Michael felt a chill run down his spine. There was something in Freddie's voice, something dark, something he couldn't identify. "What kind of preparation?" Freddie stood up from the piano, his movements suddenly rigid, mechanical. "You'll see tomorrow night. Same time, Same place. Wait, I need to know. Trust me, Michael. Freddie's voice had changed. It was deeper now, more commanding. Some secrets can only be revealed when the moon is right. Michael watched as Freddie gathered his things and headed for the door. Just before leaving, the Queen frontman turned back one final time. Tomorrow night, you'll understand why some music requires sacrifice. The door closed with a soft click, leaving Michael alone in the candlelit studio, wondering what he had just agreed to. Outside, Freddie Mercury sat in his car for a long moment, staring at his reflection in the rearview mirror. His eyes were different now, older, sadder. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, faded photograph. In it, a young boy with dark hair stood next to a white llama in what appeared to be a petting zoo. "Soon, Antonio," he whispered to the photograph. "Soon you'll have the tribute you deserve." The next night, Michael arrived early. His curiosity had consumed him for 24 hours. The studio looked different. Candles formed a perfect circle around the piano. Strange symbols were drawn on the floor in what appeared to be white chalk. But it was the smell that stopped Michael cold. Hay, the unmistakable scent of hay, and something else, something animal. "You're early," Freddie's voice came from the shadows. Michael spun around. Freddie emerged wearing a white robe that seemed to glow in the candlelight. His mustache was gone. His hair was slicked back. He looked like a different person entirely. "Freddie, what is all this?" "This," Freddie said, gesturing to the circle of candles, "is how we access the third song." Michael's heart began to race. "I don't understand." Freddie walked to a corner of the studio that had been hidden in darkness the night before. When he returned, Michael's blood turned to ice. In Freddie's arms was a white stuffed llama. But this wasn't just any toy. It was old, worn, loved. One of its button eyes was missing, replaced with what looked like a small mirror. "Meet Antonio," Freddie said softly, cradling the llama like a baby. "He's been with me for 23 years. Michael took a step back. "Freddie, what the hell is going on?" "When I was 8 years old," Freddie began, his voice taking on the cadence of someone recounting a prayer. "My family visited a petting zoo in Zanzibar. There was a white llama there, the most beautiful creature I'd ever seen." Michael wanted to leave. Every instinct told him to run, but something about Freddie's voice held him captive. "The llama's name was Antonio. I spent 3 hours talking to him, singing to him, telling him my dreams of becoming a star." Freddie placed the stuffed animal on the piano bench, arranging its legs carefully. "That night, I dreamed that Antonio gave me a gift, the gift of music that could touch souls. But the gift came with a condition." "What condition?" Freddie's eyes met Michael's across the candle-lit room. They were no longer the eyes of a rock star. They were the eyes of a true believer. "Before every important recording, I must perform the ritual of Antonio. I must channel his spirit, his purity, his connection to the divine." Michael felt sick. "Freddie, this is insane." "Is it?" Freddie's voice rose. "You want to know why Queen's music has touched millions? You want to know why Bohemian Rhapsody defied every rule and became immortal?" Michael said nothing. "Because Antonio guides my voice. He shows me melodies that exist beyond the physical world." Freddie began to hum a melody unlike anything Michael had ever heard. It was beautiful and terrifying, ancient and futuristic, human and otherworldly. "This is the third song, Michael. The Llama's Lament. It's about finding your spirit guide and learning to trust in forces beyond yourself." As Freddie hummed, he began to sway. His eyes closed. His hands moved through the air, as if he was conducting an invisible orchestra. And Michael Jackson, the most famous entertainer in the world, realized he was witnessing something that would haunt him forever. Michael couldn't sleep for 3 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Freddie Mercury swaying in that candlelit studio, humming to a stuffed llama like it was the most sacred thing in the world. The melodies were beautiful, transcendent even. But the price, ... the price was too high. On the fourth day, Michael's phone rang at 3 a.m. "Have you been practicing?" Freddie's voice was urgent, almost manic. "Practicing what?" "The third song, Michael, the Llama's Lament. Antonio came to me in a dream last night. He said, 'You're not ready.'" Michael sat up in bed, his heart pounding. "Freddie, listen to yourself. You're talking about a stuffed animal like it's real." Silence on the other end of the line. "Freddie? He is real, Michael." Freddie's voice was cold now, distant, more real than anything else in my life. "You need help. Professional help. I need your voice," Freddie exploded. "I need your voice to complete the Trinity, the 3 songs that will change everything." Michael could hear something in the background, mumbling, like Freddie was having a conversation with someone else. "Who's there with you? Antonio and I are discussing your reluctance." Michael felt a chill run down his spine. "Freddie, there's no one there. You're talking to a toy." "He's not a toy." The scream was so loud that Michael had to pull the phone away from his ear. When he put it back, he could hear Freddie crying. "You don't understand," Freddie whispered. "Without Antonio, I'm nothing. Just a man with a big mustache and a bigger ego. But with him, I'm connected to something eternal." Michael felt a wave of pity wash over him. This wasn't the confident rock god he'd met in the studio. This was a broken man clinging to a childhood comfort. "Freddie, we can make incredible music together, but we can do it without the ritual." "No." Freddie's voice was firm now. "The songs only come through Antonio. That's how it's always been. That's how it has to be." "Then I can't do this." Silence. "Michael," Freddie said finally, his voice barely a whisper, "if you walk away from this, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." "I'm sorry, Freddie. I really am." Michael hung up the phone and sat in the darkness of his bedroom, wondering if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his career. 3,000 miles away, in a small recording studio in Burbank, Freddie Mercury held a stuffed llama and wept. 2 weeks later, Michael received a package with no return address. Inside were 3 cassette tapes labeled Celestial Fusion, Mirror of Time, and the Llama's Lament. There was also a note, written in Freddie's distinctive handwriting. "Michael, these are the songs that could have made us gods. Listen to them alone, in the dark, and try not to think about what we could have been. F." Michael stared at the tapes for hours before finally deciding to listen. He waited until midnight, dimmed all the lights, put on his best headphones. Celestial Fusion was everything he'd imagined and more. The melody soared, the harmonies were revolutionary, the production was flawless. Mirror of Time made him cry. It was beautiful and haunting, a song that seemed to peer directly into his soul. But it was the Llama's Lament that changed everything. The song began with the sound of wind, then a voice, Freddie's voice, but different, deeper, more primal. He wasn't singing words. He was making sounds that seemed to come from the earth itself. And underneath it all, Michael could swear he heard something else. Something that sounded like an animal calling across a vast distance. The melody was unlike anything in popular music. It defied genre, defied explanation. It was as if Freddie had tapped into some ancient frequency that human ears weren't meant to hear. As the song reached its climax, Michael understood why Freddie believed in Antonio. The music was too perfect, too otherworldly to come from a human mind alone. When the song ended, Michael sat in silence for a long time. Then he picked up his phone and dialed. "Freddie? Michael." Freddie's voice was tired, defeated. "You listened?" "I listened." "And?" Michael closed his eyes. "They're the most beautiful songs I've ever heard." Silence. "But I still can't do it, Freddie. I can't be part of something that requires that level of Madness? Faith. It requires a kind of faith that I don't have. Freddie laughed, but there was no humor in it. Do you know what the tragedy is, Michael? What? The tragedy is that you're probably right. Maybe I am insane. Maybe Antonio is just a stuffed animal. Maybe the ritual is just the delusion of a man who's been performing so long that he's forgotten what's real. Michael felt his heart breaking. Freddie, but the music, Michael. The music is real, and you just chose safety over transcendence. The line went dead. Michael never spoke to Freddie Mercury again. The 3 songs were never released. Freddie Mercury went on to create Radio Gaga, I Want to Break Free, and eventually, The Show Must Go On. But those who knew him best said something had changed after the Michael Jackson sessions. He became more reclusive, more protective of his creative process, and he was never seen in public without a small white object tucked into his jacket pocket. Michael Jackson continued his ascent to superstardom. Thriller became the best-selling album of all time. He conquered the world. But in quiet moments, alone in his studio, he would sometimes hum a melody that didn't belong to any of his songs, a melody that seemed to call across impossible distances, reaching for something forever out of reach. In 1987, 4 years after their failed collaboration, Michael received one final communication from Freddie. It was a single photograph. Freddie sitting at a piano, his eyes closed, his hands suspended above the keys. And there, on the piano bench beside him, was Antonio the Llama. On the back of the photograph, Freddie had written, "Some music requires madness. Some madness creates miracles. Thank you for reminding me of the difference. F." Michael kept the photograph in his private studio until the day he died. Years later, when Freddie Mercury succumbed to AIDS in 1991, his estate was quietly sorted through by his closest friends. Most of his belongings were cataloged, donated, or kept as mementos. But one item simply vanished. Antonio the Llama was never found. Some say Freddie arranged for the stuffed animal to be cremated with him. Others believe it was buried in a secret location that only Freddie knew. But there's a third theory, a theory whispered among session musicians and sound engineers who worked with Freddie in his final years. They say that on certain nights, in certain studios, when the conditions are just right, you can still hear a faint melody drifting through the air. A melody that sounds like it's being hummed by someone who's found their spirit guide and learned to trust in forces beyond themselves. They say it's the Llama's lament, still being performed in some dimension where Freddie Mercury and Antonio continue their eternal collaboration. And if you listen very carefully, they say you can hear a second voice joining in the harmony. A voice that sounds remarkably like Michael Jackson, finally ready to embrace the madness he once rejected. Today, in a vault beneath Abbey Road Studios, 3 master tapes sit in climate-controlled storage. Their existence is denied by both the Mercury and Jackson estates. No official record of the 1983 sessions has ever been found. But sometimes, late at night, sound engineers working on other projects report hearing something unusual bleeding through the walls. Something that sounds like 2 of the greatest voices in music history, singing together in perfect harmony about celestial fusion, mirrors of time, and the lament of a llama named Antonio. Music industry insiders have long speculated about what those 3 songs might have accomplished if they'd been released. Some believe they would have revolutionized popular music. Others think they were too strange, too otherworldly for mainstream success. But perhaps the most interesting theory comes from Dr. Sarah Chen, a musicologist at Berkeley who has spent years studying the intersection of creativity and obsession. Sometimes, Dr. Chen explains, the most important collaborations are the ones that never happen. Sometimes, the greatest songs are the ones that remain unsung, because in their absence, they become perfect. They become legend. Michael Jackson died in 2009, taking his memories of those Burbank sessions to the grave. Freddie Mercury had already been gone for 18 years by then, but their brief encounter, those few nights in a candlelit studio where rock met pop, where sanity met madness, where two titans of music discovered they were more different than they'd ever imagined, continues to resonate. Because in the end, the story of Michael Jackson and Freddie Mercury isn't really about the songs they didn't make together. It's about the price of transcendence. It's about the choice between safety and the unknown. It's about the thin line between inspiration and obsession, between genius and madness, between the music we hear and the music that hears us. Somewhere in Los Angeles, in a studio that officially doesn't exist, 3 songs wait in eternal silence. Songs about fusion, reflection, and the lament of a white llama who may or may not have changed the course of music history. Songs that remind us that some collaborations are too powerful for this world, and some secrets are too strange to ever be fully revealed. The truth about Antonio the Llama remains hidden in the shadows of music history, waiting for someone brave enough to seek it out. But perhaps some mysteries are meant to stay mysterious. Perhaps some laments are meant to echo forever, unheard and eternal, just like the music that connects us all.